We've owned and travelled in many different types of motorhomes, caravans, tents, camper trailers and other assorted setups. This video series is an attempt to set down our thoughts on the different types of rigs and the pros and cons of each one. We aren't looking at different brands here, but at different types of travelling setup, and giving you our opinions on the experiences we've had with each one. Also, we won't be looking at different accessories that can be added to each type. This is purely about the rigs themselves and their potential. This isn't a comprehensive list by any means, but it might help you if you're thinking about travelling long-term around Australia, or even picking up some camping gear to go camping on the weekend. By necessity, this is going to be a rather long video, so I'm going to split it up into several different episodes. Let's start with the most basic setups, the good old tent. There are so many types and sizes of tents available that it's impossible to give a clear rundown of all the different styles. They may vary in price from as little as $60 to well over $1,000. The type we favour is a large 4 or 8 man tent with a steel frame. Now these are pretty large and bulky to carry, but they're also very strong, and will stand up to almost all but the worst wind. They also give a lot of living space, and this can be important if you get caught in some wet weather. For the purposes of this video, tents include things like swags, tent cots, and side awnings for 4x4s. They all have very similar characteristics. So let's start off with the advantages of going in a tent. Tents can be set up just about anywhere. They also put you closer to nature, but I guess in some circumstances they could easily be a bad thing as well. New tents generally come with micro mesh these days. Make sure you do get a tent with micro mesh, because it keeps out all but the smallest insects. Generally, you don't have as much space to carry gear when you're tenting. You'll need bedding, a mattress, a cooker, cooking utensils, pots and pans, and some way to keep your food cold. But generally speaking, tenting is a simpler way to travel. It's also probably the cheapest form of accommodation. Setup costs are usually lower than other styles, and it's a great option for many people who are just starting out. Tenting has a unique atmosphere, not available in any other type of vehicle except perhaps a camper trailer. Waking up under canvas is quite a unique experience. There are also no additional license fees or insurances to pay. Now to some of the cons, and things you might need to consider if you want to go tenting. You are subject to whatever weather is around. If it's hot, you're going to be hot. If it's cold, you're going to be cold. And if it's wet, well, your comfort could be considerably less in a tent. Tent walls don't keep noise out. If you have noisy campers around you, you're going to hear everything they do. Some tents are a bit flimsy when the wind comes up, so be sure to read reviews and find out which tents can handle wind the best. West Australia in particular is a very windy place, so having a good solid tent that will stand up to strong wind is pretty well essential. Setup and pack-up times are usually longer than other styles of rig when you're tenting. Of course, that can vary depending on the gear you carry, but just in general, yes, it will take you some time to set up camp and a bit more time to pack it all away again later. Your comfort levels are also going to be fairly low in most tents. It will depend on the gear you take with you, but it's not going to be anything like as comfortable as staying in a big motorhome. And the final con for tenting is that tents don't offer any security whatsoever. If you're leaving gear in your tent, yes, it could be subject to theft if you go away from camp, although having said that, most campers are pretty good. They're generally honest people, and everybody's in the same boat. It is rather rare to lose gear, but unfortunately, especially when you camp near larger towns and cities, It is becoming a bit more prevalent these days. Our advice is don't leave anything you can't afford to lose in your tent. Tents can also be an excellent shed to put all sorts of bits and pieces in when you're camped in another sort of vehicle. We do this ourselves and have seen many other travellers doing the same thing. With tents, you can either go simple or as complicated as you like. Everything from backpacking or cycling setups to tenting gear that would fill a trailer. The comfort you need will depend on your own personal preference, and of course your age. The older you get, the more comfort you're going to want. Trust me on this, I know.